Facebook is now facing claims of unwittingly spreading extremism around the world. Researchers found radical Islamic sympathizers were routinely introduced to one another through the popular Suggested Friends feature on Facebook. That's according to a new study out later this month by the Counter-Extremism Project. We should note CBS News senior national security analyst Fran Townsend is the president of that group. Gregory Waters, one of the authors of the report, told The Telegraph, quote, "The failure to effectively police its platform has allowed Facebook to become a place where extensive IS supporting networks exist. Propaganda is disseminated, people are radicalized, and new supporters are recruited." J.M. Berger joins me from Cambridge, Massachusetts. He is a fellow with the Counterterrorism Strategic Communications Project and the author of Extremism, which comes out in September. All right, so J.M., how can this suggested friend feature be exploited by extremists?
So this is a problem we've known about for a long time. I first wrote about it in 2013. All of the social media platforms use algorithms that allow them to suggest content you might be interested in. It's a key integral part of their functioning. And what we've seen is that these algorithms will recommend whatever kind of content you're interested in, whether it's extremist content or normal content. And managing that is a slightly different problem than managing extremist content where you go in and look for keywords. So for instance, we haven't seen the results of this study yet. I don't know exactly what kinds of accounts they're talking about, but you can be on Facebook and be an ISIS supporter and not post content that will get you suspended. If you don't put anything publicly, then you're not going to get caught. But if you're part of a social network that supports ISIS, then once a person becomes friends with you, Facebook's going to suggest that they all become friends.
Well, how concerning is this?
It's cause for concern. Without seeing the paper, it's kind of hard to judge. The numbers that they're talking about seem high to me. It depends on how they're defining what an ISIS supporter is and how open that is. I know that Facebook takes this seriously. They are putting a lot of effort into this problem. Whether that effort is enough and effective is a debate that we have continually. What I can tell you is that the online environment for ISIS and other jihadist extremists is much more difficult than it was just a couple of years ago. It used to be that it was extraordinarily easy to find this content, to find other people who are doing active recruiting and who are being open supporters. And, that is no longer the case. Now, we can't realistically hope for 100% elimination of this content on these platforms. But, so the question is how much is left. And maybe the study will have some insight in this. Until we see it, we won't really know exactly what they're talking about.
Well, how difficult is it to prevent people from using social media platforms for violent purposes?
It's easy to prevent people from using social media platforms. It's hard to know which people you're supposed to prevent. So with ISIS, was made kind of a big target in this space, and so it's been the relatively easy problem in terms of trying to control their content. We can identify their patterns. They were on the Twitter and Facebook and Google in very aggressive ways that were easy to detect, and so all those big aggressive broadcasting functions have been taken down. When you start drilling down into individual people, then it gets to be a lot harder, because then you're really trying to figure out, is this person a criminal supporter of ISIS? Are they reporting on ISIS? Are they an analyst talking about it? What are they using the platform for? And, I'll just say also, this problem doesn't begin and end with ISIS. We're really going to see a lot of additional problems in this space. We're already seeing it with neo-Nazis and the alt-right. These are much more difficult problems than ISIS, because ISIS really, in its behavior, its over-the-top graphic violence and abusive behavior made it very easy for the companies to decide to knock these guys off. As soon as you get away from this most extreme case scenario, what you're really talking about is a lot of really nuanced judgment calls that are going to be very controversial for everybody.
Well, Facebook has responded to the allegations, saying, quote, "There is no place for terrorists on Facebook. We work aggressively to ensure that we do not have terrorists or terror groups using the site, and we also remove any content that praises or supports terrorism. Our approach is working. 99% of ISIS and al-Qaeda-related content we remove is found by our automated systems, but there is no easy technical fix to fight online extremism. JM, what more can be done to remove known extremist and terrorist material online?
There are some steps. So we're talking about diminishing returns now. All the easy things have been done. And as a result, a lot of content has disappeared and a lot of these networks have been reduced. At some point, we're going to hit a level of diminishing returns where if you hire 1,000 more people, you're not going to get 1,000% improvement. You're going to hire 1,000 people and get maybe a 5% improvement or a 2% improvement. That said, we can still do that, and the companies, all the big three companies, are working on this to some extent at this point. It was sort of a slow process of getting everybody on board, but all of the companies are putting staff on this problem. It's going to be hard. Extremism is not very well defined, which is the subject of the book that I have coming out in September, just to try and put a definition that we can work with, that's a practical definition that is objective, that says this is how we identify extremist content, and then maybe we can use that clear definition to point to the next thing. What we're doing right now is just identifying, people who put up a black flag that says ISIS, or they link to an ISIS video. And while that's useful, that's not going to get you 100% of the users who are supporting ISIS on a platform.
So then, JM, who should be making decisions about what content is suitable for users?
That is the question, isn't it? So, we didn't elect Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to make decisions about our values for us. And again, in the case of ISIS, everybody pretty much agrees. ISIS made it simple for us to agree that they should not be allowed to use these platforms. But when you start moving away from that into organizations that are extremist but not violent, or you move into organizations that are extremist but have mainstream support in the countries where they operate, such as the National Front in France or the AfD in Germany, or significant portions of the alt-right in the United States. These people are part of mainstream politics. So, it's going to be a very difficult decision for a social media company to say, this content is extremist and offensive, and we're going to take it down if, we're talking about 10 to 15% of the population. ISIS has never commanded more than, a fraction of 1% in any given population in any country. So, when we're talking about people who have 15%, 30% support in a country, and even if they're putting out neo-Nazi material, it's going to be very difficult for these companies to really find a solution that everybody can live with.
A lot of complicated, tough questions ahead. JM Berger, JM, thank you.
Thank you.